And a very good evening to you from the giant video matrix scoreboard at the Melbourne Cricket Ground and from our temporary studio at the MCG for the 1984 Grand Final review. And good evening to you right across Southern Australia. We hope you'll enjoy the next hour, half an hour reviewing the Grand Final and then the best quarter, the thrilling last quarter of the showdown between Essendon and Hawthorn. And the Dons have done it. A 19-year drought at Essendon is finally over, and Essendon have done it in the most satisfying way possible to come from a long way behind after looking hopelessly beaten most of the day to score a great victory. It's Essendon's 13th premiership. It puts them on the same rung as Collingwood, who stood out alone over many years, were overtaken by Carlton in 1982. The Blues have won 14. Essendon and Collingwood now equal second on 13. Looking at the scoreboard, you wouldn't believe it that Hawthorn outplayed Essendon for 3 quarters and really looked as if they were going to win the grand final in a trot. But at half-time, it was the Hawks 25 points in front. At 3-quarter time, Hawthorn still led by 23 points. And then in a whirlwind last quarter, Essendon, after kicking only 5 goals in the first 3, kicked 9 to absolutely blitz the Hawks and race to a great victory. The final score, Essendon 14-21, 105. Defeating Hawthorn 12 goals 9, 81. That in front of the smallest crowd to attend a VFL Grand Final since 1955. Only 92,600 people were at the MCG to see the brilliant Bombers do it. Terry Daniher, the skipper, and there isn't a more popular captain in the game, hoisted the cup aloft at around about 5:15 Melbourne time, and the Dons had finally avenged the embarrassment, the humiliation of last year's record-breaking Grand Final defeat, which was inflicted upon them by the very same team. So, a small crowd by Grand Final standards, but as usual, a great occasion, a great win to Essendon, and some very happy Essendon supporters. Not least among those 2 regular members, long-standing members of our panel, Doug Bigelow and Jeff Leake, and it must be a great feeling.
Yes, well, I couldn't get beaten today because there were 22 players out for them. Leake and I joined them, but it was a great win, and congratulations to the club. We're very happy tonight, Tim. A lot of hard work has gone into it. I congratulate Kevin Sheedy and more than 20 players, and a great combination of people out at the Essendon Football Club. After the humiliation of last year, they had to do something, and they came back in no better fashion than they did today. I thought it was marvellous.
Well, Leakey, you were in there last but one. How does it feel for you?
For you, beauty. Don supporters far and wide, right across the country. It's great. It's been a long time. It was a marvellous feeling today to see them, and I must say that 3-quarter time I felt, and I had a little talk to myself to say, well, OK, you put in today, it's not your best, it's not your day, but hang in there, fellows, because you're a young side. Another year, you'll learn a lot out of today's game if you lose, because it looked as though they're going to lose at 3-quarter time, and they were 23 points down, but they got up there on that marvellous 9-goal, the 2-goal final term was fantastic. Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, 2 great former Essendon players. That's the way they saw it. Let's go down and get something firsthand. And after the game, Drew Morford spoke to Essendon coach Kevin Sheedy.
I was just happy for the players. You know, they're a good bunch of boys.
Well, there it is, Dick Reynolds, who's coached and played in premiership teams. Sheed, you've done it for the first time for Essendon in 19 years. How does it feel?
Oh, well, you know, we're pretty happy about it. There's no doubt about that. But the players, you know, they deserve their victories, I'd said. You know, we had to beat a good side, Hawthorn. They're a very fine side, and they've beaten us every time this year with the day series. And I think that, you know, with the players that missed out, it's unfortunate for them, but with the win the way we did, after the poor start we got off to, you know, it's just a very pleasing feature of the courage and persistence that they really have.
What were you thinking after 4 goals in 7 minutes?
Well, I felt that if we could get the next goal and if we could perhaps kick straighter than what we were, you know, it could be close at sort of half-time, and then you start again.
You've encouraged versatility, and you certainly needed it today. You had defenders become forwards.
Yes, I've always believed in that, and I think that, you know, if the players gradually learn to play forward and back, you know, most of their careers, and particularly young boys out playing in the junior clubs and that, if they can learn to be able to not get the sulks when they go down the back line because they only want to play in the forward line, as they come up the ranks, it's very important for them.
Kevin Sheedy playing it cool. He has done right through the season, particularly in the final series. As Drew said, it must be extremely satisfying for him that he had the team almost turned around completely at one stage late in the match, but it all seemed to fit into place in the last quarter. Mike Fitzpatrick, something of a coaching triumph?
It was something of a coaching triumph, but I certainly was one of the people that was critical of them, certainly in the 3rd quarter when they had Duckworth up forward. But as Kevin Sheedy said, Duckworth really did lift himself. He had some of the best stats of the Essendon forwards in the third quarter. And I guess Duckworth was really symbolic of the way Essendon went about winning this game. At one stage he had Duckworth and Bradbury in the goal square, in the forward line, and it really looked as though he'd moved his side around so much that he had tricked himself. And in the third quarter, I guess, it looked as though early in the quarter Hawthorn was simply going to go away with it, and certainly at half-time that's how most of the people in the media room saw it. But they battled on pretty well, and players such as Baker and I guess Harvey, who'd come on late in the first quarter and given a bit of drive, really played pretty well in the third quarter, and it gave them that opportunity to come in at three-quarter time, 23 points down, with what appeared like just a little bit of a following breeze. And I guess it's history now, but they kicked 9 goals in the last quarter. 4 of them they kicked in the first 8 minutes, and it was a bit of a turnaround because Hawthorn had really been getting the ball out of the centre square for most of the day, and all of a sudden players started driving out of the middle. And it was picked up very quickly by the Essendon forwards. Baker kicked 2, Bradbury 1, and Thompson 1. And straight away the match was virtually on an even keel. There was then a very nasty incident between DiDomenico and Walsh. Walsh went off. The game was in the balance. Curran goaled after a poor disciplined, an undisciplined display by Daniher, and it looked as though the incident had suddenly thrown Essendon off their guard, but all of a sudden they came back and they just finished all over the Hawthorn side, which really appeared to have run out of legs and enthusiasm, particularly after the rather nasty incident. One of the players that really was involved in driving Essendon out of that centre square early in the last quarter was Williams. Fairly quiet for most of the day, lifted himself in the third quarter, and then in the last quarter, just in the first 5 minutes, got 3 or 4 balls out when it really counted.
Too far for Baker. Now he's onto it. Now he's got it. Open goal. Doug, pretty exciting there towards the end. One of the really stirring finishes.
It was one of the great wins, Tim. I didn't think it was a coaching triumph early. I thought it might be a coaching disaster early. I've never seen such an overuse of the 15-metre penalty, which is obviously done under coach's instructions to hold the game up. And I thought Essendon looked pretty ragged. And then their star of last week, Van der Haar, half-back flank before the end of the first term. 15-minute mark took his first mark. At the 18-minute mark, he was off the ground. And I really thought this time, well, the Bombers were gone. And I guess the time that I really thought they might be finished was about the 23-minute mark in the third term when Judge bolted away down the field with, I think in memory, the gallant Billy Duckworth chasing him, got a beautiful pass to Brereton, 4 goals the difference. But the Bombers were absolutely magnificent. Youth, as I think Jeffrey Leake mentioned, persevered. The blonde hair of young Mark Harvey was all over the ground, bouncing over the place. In the last term, it was absolutely revitalised. Bradbury hadn't been sighted, got 7 possessions. Timothy Michael Watson was absolutely magnificent all day, but in the final term was an absolute match winner. And the South Australian, a very experienced player, ex-captain of South Australia, Weston, had a very ordinary 3 quarters. In the last term, he bounced away, kicked 1 beautiful goal, got a lovely hand pass to Watson, and here he is.
Weston slips away at half forward. He's got a break on Mew. Mew into his back. Free kick, Weston.
Van der Haar moving quickly, calls for the long one to the pocket. He goes towards him, he's got the set, he's got the ball. Well, Skeeter Coghlan, it looked delightful last year, but there's something about it this year that doesn't look right.
I think the tassel's frazzled. Really, I wore it with great pride last year, and I thought I was going to wear it again with dignity because I thought the Hawks had everything going for them for 3 quarters. But I dipped my lid to the Dons. And gentlemen of Essendon, if you'd like to borrow this for this evening at the celebrations, you are quite welcome, because they've certainly earned their colours today, Essendon.
Noble in defeat, and that was beautifully said, and you mean every bit of it.
I do mean every word of it, but I think we better give a great deal of credit to that Essendon last quarter. The way that the Essendon players teamed, the fact that they found gaps around the ground was an enormous copy of the Hawthorn plan, and they did it to perfection. I thought that they had greater physical strength and greater mental freshness in that last quarter. But the player who has been a great success in these last 2 games, I thought, for Essendon, is the player who moved out of the centre into half-forward flank last week. He demoralised Collingwood in the opening minutes of the game. That's Baker, Leon Baker. Today he really set up that win in the last quarter. He kicked 2 of the first 4 goals, and the second of those goals put Essendon 1 point ahead, and they never looked like going backwards after that.
Williams, Van der Haar's there, on the ground, Baker! He's got it! That could be just what the Bombers need. 3 goals to Leon Baker.
Leakey, a great day for you. Not only have you seen the Bombers win a flag, but you were also invited to be on the judging panel for the Norm Smith Medal. I haven't announced who won it on television. It has been announced here, but perhaps you'd like to announce that to our television audience.
Well, yes, I would. It was a rather interesting day today for that, and I don't know the other members who were invited from the VFL, and I was honoured to be involved in that selection. But I think there was a little bit of adding and deleting from the list of those players who came in and out of the game. And it was a fantastic spectacle from so many players, and I guess there were not so many outstanding players as we have seen over the last finals matches. Super duper stuff really, but I think Bill Duckworth was the man who got the nod, and this is one of Kevin Sheedy's ploys of switching forwards to backs and back to forward, and Duckworth went to forward, kicked a couple of goals, was produced in the back line in the final term as well. A sensational game from Duckworth. Some don't altogether agree with me that Duckworth played a really top game, but for what he did and the way he did it, I think he deserves the accolade.
Sandwiched out of it. Dipper tries to crash through. Hooks back. Duckworth. He's played well at both ends of the ground.
That was a great mark under all sorts of pressure.
Goes on.
Well, a great performance by Bill Duckworth, who really showed surprising flexibility, as Jeff has said, to perform well at both ends of the ground. Well, we've seen some of the Dons in action. We've heard from their very happy coach, Kevin Sheedy, and now perhaps time to reflect on what happened to the losing team. And we've been joined by Leigh Matthews. And Leigh, we really appreciate the effort in coming up, because I guess it doesn't feel too good, but well done, well battled. How does it feel?
Oh, well, I suppose I think every footballer really to complete their career should play in a losing grand final side in a lot of ways, because I think it's easy to playing a winning one and it's a lovely feeling, but you know, that's part of the game really. I think everybody comes here today, all the players certainly, and you know that there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, and for 3 quarters we were hanging in there when we had the break, but when the match had to be won, Essendon went on and won it. So that's life really, and that's all we can do is congratulate them for putting up such a wonderful last quarter.
With hindsight, we could say you were hanging in, but it really did seem for 3 quarters that, to us, that you were pretty well on top. Did it feel that way?
No, I don't think so. I think we made too many unforced errors coming through midfield for most of the match. After that first 10 minutes when we got the 4-goal break, we weren't able to, you know, get any further ahead, and I think Essendon were kicking poorly, and when you often look at a side that's had more scoring shots, eventually they're going to start kicking goals, and in a low-scoring match like it was today, if you can kick 9 goals in a quarter, you're going to win the match.
Leigh, do you find them the toughest physical side you've played for the year? I thought that it looked as if, in the long run, it was really their strength that took over.
Yes, I think so. I think they're probably as strong physically as any side in the competition. Yeah, I'd say that's the case.
Last, in the second semi, Leigh, Green was covered and the Judge was covered, and the same sort of thing happened today, but you're able to overcome that in the second semi and get on and win with other methods and so forth. You seem to be running that way today as well. It was an overall team effort, but that seemed to really peg you back.
I think so. I mean, I think just simply it was a match very after the first 10 minutes when we got the break, which we did in the second semi-final. I thought it was a very similar match, except Essendon never really got back. You know, we always had that break, but in a match like that, as I say, just simply, if you can kick 9 goals in the last quarter, you're going to go on and win. And in the second semi-final, Essendon weren't able to do that, and we were able to maintain the break. But today, of course, that wasn't to be.
What do you think was behind the sudden surge after 3/4 time with Essendon? Why do you think they suddenly got on top? Because they really picked up the 4 goals they hadn't been able to pick up for 2.5 quarters in 8 minutes.
Well, I suppose simply, and that's very difficult to judge when you're on the field. You often sort of get a really good view of what's happening because you're involved in it. But I suppose, you know, Terry Wallace, for instance, is a player who hasn't had as good a preparation as we would have liked. He's only played the second semi-final in about the last 6 weeks almost, and possibly Terry started to tire a little bit in the last quarter, but because certainly they took every ball out of the centre bounce in the last quarter, and I think it was a match that was sort of, you know, touch and go really, and it was critical that we, to win, kicked the first goal in the last quarter, I felt, and when they kicked it so quickly, like 20 seconds or something, and then butted up for another one straight away, within 5 minutes of the last quarter they were just behind or in front even, and I think then at their heart you could see the spirits lift, and they certainly came on fresher than we did. They certainly played on the last quarter physically, I think, better. I mean, our blokes started to look a bit tired, and whereas they looked, as fit as Supermen.
What about the other end of the game? Yet again, you got an amazing start against them. What's been the secret behind that?
Must be our eucalyptus oil. I don't know. We certainly have. I mean, I think we have got a terrific bunch of players at the club at the moment. They really have. Today, we were on the losing end, but they are a terrific bunch of blokes who are really fair dinkum about doing the best they can for the cause and themselves and the team and all that kind of thing. And they were keen to do well, and they've jumped out of the blocks and really, the best we played for the whole day was the first 10 minutes. Unfortunately, and I suppose credit to Essendon, I suppose as well, that we weren't able to continue that kind of sort of zest on. But I thought we just, I just thought we made so many errors in midfield. As we were coming forward, we lost possession by skill errors, players slipping as they kicked, or our game plan, we play best running the ball through, running the ball deep into the forward line. We seem to fall apart in the centre too often and lose possession.
Well, I think you've indicated that you're keen to go on for another year at least. Does what happened today affect that in any way?
No, it's... today's today. As I say, next year I was intending to play again no matter what happened today. So, the bitter pill of losing a grand final is sometimes good for the soul, I suppose. I think there was... I don't know how many players in our side today played in our losing premiership grand final match of 1975 when North Melbourne beat us, but it really gives you the other side of the game, and I think part of the character that's built from football is learning to cope with defeat and not letting it get you down, because our players, I think, gave everything today. I don't think there's anything for them to be ashamed of, but on the day they talk about the what's the greatest motivating factor, and I think the fear of losing is a very great factor. And maybe at three-quarter time, I think the Essendon fellas knew what it feels like to lose a grand final, and they were able to find that something extra in the last quarter.
Thanks again for joining us, Leigh. I don't want to sound patronising, but I think what you've said is an inspiration to people who are on the receiving end, and it happens to all of us at times.
Fine, thanks, Tim.
OK, well, let's talk about the Hawks. And, Doug, for three quarters, they were well in front, and they had some fine players.
They were beaut, Tim. I thought Chris Mew was a wonderful player because he was on that very magnificent Essendon captain. I thought he eclipsed him, and he's a very casual, nonchalant, delightful-looking player, Mew. I thought Richard Loveridge played pretty well. When I look at the team, I think that basically the disappointing lineup in the finals has probably been their half-forward line. This was the line that I often said was the best line in the Hawthorn side. That was Curran, Judge and Brereton. And in particular, Curran and Judge haven't done very much in the final except for the odd brush. And I think, looking in retrospect, and I've never had any doubt about this, the man that they needed most today was one by the name of Peter Knights, who's oft forgotten, but is in the same category as Leigh Matthews, and that's as high an accolade as you can give to a footballer. Peter wasn't there with his jumping and his high marking ability, and it was Ayres, I thought, who really did it very, very well. He's like Chris Mew. Allan Jeans got a lovely expression. He says, Ayres is good in the heavy traffic. He always looks to have tons of time. He's a lovely player.
Goal that holds up. Ayres is back there. Oh, what a great mark!
Well, that was a great mark, and certainly the Hawthorn side didn't really appear to operate quite as well after the first 10 minutes or so when they kicked the first 4 goals. They did play quite well to the extent that...
Well, what about their start? I mean, how do you think they get out of the box so well? Is it just a matter of them being better G'd up than the other team before they go out? How could Essendon be caught napping again as they were in other matches against them?
I thought really, Tim, that they ran very hard at the ball very early. And I thought also the example that Matthews set up early by going in very, very hard and kicking a goal early and showing that he was fair dinkum really was something that got them going.
Matthews put the head down and bursts away. Well, what can you add to what's been said about this man so many times?
A great opening by Hawthorn, and that great goal from Leigh Matthews. And that first quarter of Hawthorn's, I think, is one that they will remember, and they've done it so often in matches against Essendon and against other clubs. They've got away to a brilliant burst of goals, and the one from Matthews was followed by 2 from Robertson. And it looked as though the Hawks were going to actually massacre the Dons again today. It looked almost like a repeat of last year's grand final. And one of the other high flyers of Hawthorn, who was probably in for a better day, I thought, than he actually did have, was Dermot Brereton. But he did kick an excellent goal in that first quarter. We'll have a look at it now.
because Burns on Western, and of course there's a bit of a height problem there for the Essendon side. I don't know what Sheedy's going to do about it. He may have to move a tall like Merritt down there.
Breeze right to left for him from there. Tuck with an early leap, but a fantastic mark to Brereton, who hasn't been in it yet, but how good was that?
To finally judge mark this, he was sitting at the back of the pack and just managed to get a little bit of a ride on Justin Madden and plucked it off the top. Simon Madden.
Over the top of Simon Madden, not a bad effort at all. Well, back to the winner's circle, and we've been joined for the second year in a row by Terry Daniher, and I suppose your thoughts are just so different from this time last year, Terry.
Yes, they certainly are, Tim, and you know, it was really great you know, after all year, the last 4 years, I think Kevin's been working at getting a side and getting the right type of players into the club, which will make us a force, and today it all happened. It didn't happen from the very start, but we just kept chipping away, and we're fortunate enough to finish up with a win. It was terrific.
What did he say to you at three-quarter time? Same thing, I think, Jeff, as you're going to say, three-quarter time. What happened?
Oh, I don't know. He just said, well, you know, the ball's entirely in our hands, and he said, you know, like, it's up to you boys. We've worked hard all year, and it was just a matter of getting down and keep working. We had our fair share of the ball in the third quarter, so the guys we were still confident enough that we could finish off. We've put in a very hard pre-season, and we've always been confident that we can finish off games, and we have done throughout the season. And today we just did just that. We kept working and kept plugging away, and we made a couple of moves, and they come off very well for us, and we finished up.
There was never any panic when things refused to go right early on?
Oh, we were, naturally enough, any player would be concerned. At half-time, we weren't sort of really getting our ball game going at all. We're handballing under pressure, and weren't going directly to teammates. We were looping them, and our passes were going a bit astray, but credit must go to Hawthorn. They beat us again at the start, and you really attacked the ball, and I thought they were beating us to the ball in the centre and getting it out early, but we just kept working at it.
Terry, what went through your mind in that last quarter when Essendon had hit the front, and we were in fact, I think, about 5 points up, and the ball came down, Curran marked, and you gave him a 15-metre penalty, and Hawthorn hit the front again?
Yes, it was a very bad mistake on my behalf in giving him that 15-metre penalty, and I think that goal put Hawthorn back in front, and it certainly was disastrous as far as I was concerned, and wasn't too happy at all with that, because I felt that you know, the guys up forward were doing so well, and I took Paul Weston's place, and he went to centre half forward and really played well up there, and for me just to give a stupid 15-metre penalty away like that, which resulted in a goal, I was a fair bit very worried, man, at that particular time, but to my teammates, they just kept slogging away and got the ball down there, and I think Roger Merritt took that big mark in the goal square and got us back in front again, and we just continued on with it.
Totally out of character, Terry, that coming from you. Did you misjudge how far from goal you were? You thought perhaps it was a bit further upfield?
Oh, I think as the game wears on, you know, obviously every play sort of tend to become a bit weary in the legs and things like that, and I remember Shane sort of saying to me, you know, don't, but the leg had already, the brain had sort of triggered the thing off the legs, and the legs moved forward and kicked that bloody ball, and I said, oh my God, what have I done here?
And a bit of white
light. It resulted in a goal. It was a good kick. I thought I might have been able to put him off on the mark, but it resulted in a goal, and it didn't make me feel too happy at all.
Fabulous finish. A temporary lapse. I don't think there was any doubt about you winning in the last quarter, was there? The way you started.
Well, yeah, it was very handy. We knew we had to get off to a good start, and which was what we did. We got out there and kicked the first couple of goals. But, I think the guys sort of really wanted to do it for Sheedy. He's been a terrific guy and stuck by a lot of the players throughout the year. We've seen a lot of players have been a bit patchy and a bit in and out, and also the injured players, and that there's a few that were probably a bit unlucky not to have been selected today, and likes of Stephen Carey and Tony Bahajar and Brian Wood and these types of players could have easily fitted into the side, but so, you know, it was really a terrific effort for us to get up for those guys and the rest of the players in the club and the supporters after letting them down so badly last season.
Quite a few stories before the match that Baker, Van der Haar weren't up to scratch, and that Madden was ill.
Well, no, I don't, Mike. I think that I didn't really know that. You know, both Baker, Leigh has had a bit of a, has had a crook knee and has had a lot of fluid building up on it after the games and that. And he was a bit of a concern for the, you know, for the club. And but you know, going out and doing as well as what he did last week, it was, you know, he came back out and did equally the same again today. But in the likes of Paul, well, he was certainly right. There's no worries. You never know whether the bugger's going to turn up to the train earlier on in the week, and I suppose that kicked off a couple of rumours as to whether Van der Haar was ill or not. But I think he contributed, as all the players did. But Simon, you know, Simon was right. I didn't hear of any problems that he had before the game.
Well, Terry,
can I talk to my mate here for a moment?
Sure,
Sorry.
yep.
Thank you very much. Terry, you kicked 1 goal 7 in the second quarter, and you need your fair share of luck in the final game, don't you? You've got to get some of those, you've got to squeeze them through for goals. But did that have any demoralising effect on the players? Did you talk about that at half-time?
Oh, naturally enough, Kevin stressed that you know, the forward line had to straighten up, you know, and try and put a few more through in the second half. But I think that resulted in just Hawthorn's pressure. You know, they've got a very strong defence line, you know, and you know, it certainly made it very hard for us because we weren't sort of, I don't think we had the forward line at all very open there in the early stages, and whether that was a reason for the ball not coming down quite quickly enough or directly enough or what, I don't know. But and a lot of the shots that we did have were kicked under pressure and there were snaps, you know, whereas on Hawthorn's hand they had a lot of direct shots at goal and put them through.
Good difference.
Terry, thanks for joining us. We were delighted that you did it last year after what had happened out there, and it must have really hurt to climb up all those steps and talk to us. It's great to have you back under the different circumstances this year.
Thanks very much, Tim.
Well done. Well, just before we go, I think we can get a quick word from the losing coach, Allan Jeans, very quick, and after the game he spoke to Clark Hansen.
Allan, you led for 3/4 of a grand final. Is there an explanation how Hawthorn lost it?
No, all I can know, they're very hard to win, that's all. And unfortunately, I thought with signs there where we looked a bit tired. We didn't have enough running players. And I thought if we held on for the first 10 minutes of the last quarter, you know, the tiredness might have taken over them. But the 2 goals seemed to give them the adrenaline they required, and they lifted their game. And we seemed to... The opposite effect took place with us, and our blokes seemed to get a little tired, a little weary, and the result went from there.
When did you sense there was danger?
Oh, I suppose we didn't get enough use of the ball in the third quarter. You know, we didn't make enough of it. The wind was... There was a fair bit of strength in the wind. This was definitely the scoring end, and we didn't make enough of it in the third quarter. But I thought if we could have held on just for 10 minutes in the last quarter, it might have been just what we wanted.
Sheedy made a number of changes through the match, and one winner was Duckworth up to the forward line, and also Weston. When that happened, did it worry you at all at the beginning?
Oh, well, yeah. A lot of things worry you out there, and you just hope that, you know, wherever they put players, you still only got an opponent each. Got an opponent, but it worked for Kev today, and you know, they came off. But I think the big thing is they seem to get the ball out of the centre on most occasions, and we're on the defensive from there.
A lot of
the unflappable one, premiership coach last year, second place getter in 1984, Allan Jeans. He's won 2 flags, he's been beaten in 3 grand finals, 2 at St Kilda, and now 1 at Hawthorn. Well, now time for our replay, and what a replay it is. One of the really great quarters of grand final football. At 3/4 time, the Hawks in front by 23 points, having led all